What's up, everybody? I'm Caleb also known as NFL Caleb 22, and we are back with another edition of Betting the NFL. And as always, I am with my co-host Derek Weatherly, also known as DWeezy. What's going on, man?
Not much. Ready to jump in these lines. Glad to be back on screen with the folks this week. Had a little struggle last week, but that's the name of the game. You push through one week, start fresh the next week.
Absolutely, man. Well, we're here with another week in the off-season, preseason of the NFL season. Um, and what we do here, we try to do on the show is make you guys money, and that is the goal. That is our mission, and that's what we're going to try to do. And how we're going to do that this week, we're going to go over the AFC West as we've been going through every single division, going through their futures, so we can make some futures bets with y'all, and we can make you guys some money doing that. And this week, our division we'll be going over is the AFC West. Um, this is was supposed to be a really tough division last year. Didn't turn out. Two teams were in the mix in the end of things, but two teams were disappointing um, at the end of things. And then going into this season, it's a little tough with the three teams. We'll see. We'll see with the third. But we will start with. Oh, before we do that, before we go over each team, we like to help you guys out. So if you guys can help us out by subscribing to the channel, liking this video if you can, and also if you really want to support us, go down in the description below, click on the link to the Patreon, um, and click on whatever tier that will suit you. We would really appreciate that. All right, now first off, I would like to start with the odds of each team, and the favorite to win this division is the Kansas City Chiefs at minus 160. Last year the Chiefs 12 and 14 and 3, first in the division, won the Super Bowl, and this was with Mahomes won the MVP. Everybody said without Hill they might take a step back. They did not. They won. They had a 10th consecutive winning record. They won the division 7 straight years in a row. And a couple players left this season. They got a new coordinator. Schuster's gone. Orlando Brown left. They got Juwan Taylor to replace them, Donovan Smith as well, and then also got a second round receiver to try to replace Schuster. So a little bit of a change of things for the Chiefs, but even like they had some changes the year previous, and they still were able to go on and win the Super Bowl. So what do you think their chances are to win this division? And their over under is set at 11.5. Do they go over? Do they go under? What do you think, DWeezy?
I think that number is. I think that's a good number, honestly, because this is a team, like you said, we saw last year where we saw them have to shake things up a little bit. And going into last year, we had questions about how this team could perform offensively. And for the most part throughout the season, they were able to quiet the doubters. They did not come across as strong as people expected throughout the season. But at the same time, when you end the season with the Super Bowl ring on your finger, I think you were doing things right. So as far as winning this division, I don't think there's a team in the division this year that's going to upset them. I believe it's their division to win. And barring some sort of major injury to someone like Mahomes for multiple games, I think this team would be able to survive an injury just about anywhere else on the roster.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty clear bet at minus 160. You're not getting too much value on the division winner, but I mean, with such a kind of a for sure bet, I mean, I don't see really any other teams really competing the Chiefs of what they can do at that number. I mean, I don't think you're gonna be sorry for betting on that 160. As far as the over and under, I mean, they went 14 and 3. on a year that everybody said they were going to go backwards a little bit, and they still won 14 games. So if they can do that again, I think 12 is plenty easy enough to take the over. I don't think that's really asking too much, especially with the guy like Patrick Mahomes. As long as Patrick Mahomes is healthy, I can't see them losing less than 12 games, honestly. So I would definitely take that. And they are a minus 450 to make the playoffs. I think that's a pretty easy bet to win. I mean, like I said, as long as Mahomes is healthy and he reads there, can't really even with them. Maybe they can still make the playoffs because they were making the playoffs with Alex Smith. So maybe even without him, they can still try to make it. So I think that's a very for sure bet right there. If you want to make put a little more money, you'll have to put a little more down with that 450 number to win some money back. But I don't think you're gonna have too much chances of losing on that bet if you choose to do so.
Honestly,
All right. Yeah.
if
Go ahead.
someone was looking at the Chiefs to potentially a scenario to sort of play off that winning the division, you might keep your eyes open for at some of these books out there, a possible market where maybe they a number one seed on the season. I imagine you would see a lot better odds with something like that. Where in this scenario, if we're talking about them winning the division, we're also likely talking about them going out and winning, 11, 12 games. Also talking about this over being a possibility as far as the total wins. It becomes a very likely possibility that this team could be very well in contention for landing a number one seed in the playoffs and home field advantage. So if that's a market that comes available in some places, I would definitely look at that as a possible way to potentially find a plus number on a Kansas City Chiefs team that I think a lot of people would not be shocked if we see in the AFC Championship game and possibly the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, they're gonna have a lot. They're gonna be the favorite in most of their games. It's gonna be a lot of minus numbers to bet on. So, like you said, wherever you can find that plus number on the Chiefs, I would take the value on that one because they probably could win you that bet. Dealer saying, "Hey, we will talk about Adelia's Broncos coming up in this episode. So stay tuned for that." But next, we will get to the team with the second best odds to win the division, and that is Los Angeles Chargers at plus 325. You know, and then the over under is set at 9.5 games. And the Chargers to make the playoffs are at minus 110. So they're our favorite to make the playoffs. And then, the Chargers were 10-7 last year, second in the AFC West, lost in the wild card to the Jaguars. Obviously, we all know they blew the huge lead at halftime to Trevor Lawrence. And but as far as this offseason goes, they didn't do too much in free agency, not really big, huge deals there. They drafted another receiver, Quentin Johnston, from TCU in the first round to go along with kind of injured Keenan Allen and Mike Williams go along with that core. Um, so like I said, Herbert, new deal. What do you think his chances to make the playoffs and do the hit that over on that 9.5?
Um, I definitely see this being more a wild card team as the season unfolds. Even if they were in another division, I'm not sure this will be a year where they potentially fight for a division champion or division crown. Uh, I'm not sure this team wins double digit games this season. What seems to be a common trend as we look over the past couple seasons with the Chargers is the ability for players to stay healthy. Now, whether this is a issue with an inadequate medical or training staff, I definitely couldn't say for sure. But throughout the past couple of years, at a number of different positions, a number of different ways. We've seen injuries be a main hindrance to this team that hasn't lacked in talent. Um, I think everybody would pretty much agree with the Herbert deal, to maybe not exactly on the exact figures of the deal, but for the most part, locking up somebody that you believe is a franchise quarterback potentially for the next 5 to 7 years. Um, I would have liked to seen them do more as far as maybe bringing in some fresh talent, whether that be through free agency or the draft. I do think this wide receiver core is a little dicey. As I mentioned, we hadn't seen many of these players be able to stay healthy at key positions for long stretches. We've seen Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both struggle with injuries over the past few seasons.
Yeah, I think that's why they
Austin
went receiver in
Eckler,
the first round, just for that reason.
e- exactly. And so, yes, it's a team you would want to get excited at looking, at this team on paper. Um, they seem to have a lot of the right pieces, but I don't think they've quite yet figured it out. And this it could possibly end up being a situation where this team might be being held back by their head coach. I'm not a big fan of their head coach out there in Los Angeles. Um, but you know, 10 games, even with the extra game playing 17 games, I do think that's going to be a difficult challenge for them to reach.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't see them getting to 10. I like him right at 9 games. Taking the under on that one. Plus 325. I just don't see it. I just can't see really any of these teams competing with the Chiefs to win the division. So I wouldn't even make a bet on that, even with just a little money, because I think just throwing your money away with that one. And as far as making the playoffs, I would go on the plus side. I'm going to play plus side and say no, just because I see more value in them not missing it, especially because the AFC is just a really tough conference. There's going to be a lot of teams that like the 9 to 12 wins in that kind of mix. So even if they have a pretty good year, they might still not make the playoffs. So with the plus number and saying no, they won't make the playoffs, I think that's a much better value bet than going with the favorite on that one. And
Exactly.
also, they got a new
I was
coordinator.
going to say
Yeah,
that
go
I
ahead.
think it's possible we see in one or two divisions, potentially multiple, if not three, 10 win plus teams. And so when you start talking about a wild card market, even if this team does have 9 wins, you may see a tiebreaker situation that keeps them out of the playoffs. And again, back to holding that no with plus money, you're going to feel pretty good sitting there on the other side of that tiebreaker.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing, I was with you. I don't believe in their head coach. I don't think he takes too. I think he just takes too many chances. I don't think he's very good situationally, and that loses them a lot of games. And then also they have another change in the coaching staff in Kellen Moore, which I know well as a Cowboys fan, and he's not a good coordinator. He was inexperienced getting the job, and he proved how inexperienced playing calling, and it didn't get us where we needed to go, where we wanted to go, especially um, last year. I mean, his play calling is terrible, especially in the passing game. His routes that he schemes up can't scheme a guy open to save lives. Like he's not good. Another mark against them. So I don't see good things happening for their offense, and therefore I would say the under for the Chargers. All right, let's go with the next team in this division, and that is the Denver Broncos, plus 550, are third to win the division. Um, their over under is set at 8.5. They are plus 180 to make the playoffs. and so they went 5-12, completely disappointing year. I just got to apologize for everybody from last year going all in on this team on this show. That was my bad. That was a really bad call. They were completely awful. Um, I thought, I had them in the Super Bowl. I said I said all kinds of things, and I put a lot of money on them, and it did not work out at all. So I would like to apologize to everybody watching. That was my bad. I'm striving to change and do better this year. But we all make mistakes, and I definitely whiffed on the Broncos because they did go 5-12. They were fourth in the division. Like I said, huge disappointment, and Russell Wilson definitely regressed under Nathaniel Hackett and his coaching. But now they got and they got a new head coach and Sean Payton. Um, so they still have that defense. They still have a pretty good defense. Hopefully, you would think that Russell Wilson is better under Sean Payton. But what do you think of their chances in this division and their chance to go over?
I definitely think the Broncos. As I mentioned earlier, sort of trying to find some of those secondary markets and some of those less common markets. Um, I think potentially something that might be worth looking at with the Broncos is the possibility of them finishing second in their division because, as you look at the odds to win the division, clearly they're not ranked second to, in the odds. And so you're likely going to see a little bit better of a plus number. While I don't think they'll be able to challenge the Chiefs for the division crown, I do think, we could definitely see them in a race with the Chargers for that second place. Because I don't think the Raiders will be able to put together much of a season. But when it does come to the Broncos, I do think making the playoffs might be a bit of a stretch. It's kind of hard to look at a lot of what we saw last year. There's been a lot of turnover within the coaching staff. They have a new defensive coordinator. Their coordinator from last year, he's currently in Carolina. And, as you said, they have a new head coach. Clearly, Hackett was not the guy. I don't know if it was a situation where Denver thought maybe this was going to help them swing and get Aaron Rodgers, or I've heard that theory thrown out there. Either way, the team clearly recognized that things were not working, blew it up, and that makes trying to put an accurate number on this team a little bit challenging because do they have some of the talented pieces to put up W's? Yes. Are they playing in a very difficult division? Yes. Having to face the Chargers and the Chiefs twice this year, sorry, Adelia, but that could be 4 losses right there. At the same time, we could see this team potentially go off for a 3-4 game win streak, depending on where in the schedule things fall. So I definitely think this will be an interesting team to watch. I'd have to lean to the no on if they make the playoffs, but at the same time, I would definitely keep an eye out on their odds with the market, like I said, for them possibly to finish second.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think they probably won't make the playoffs, but at the plus number on them to win at plus 180, I just see too much value on putting just a little bit of money just on the off chance that they will make the playoffs. I think that's good value there to at least put a bet on that and saying that they will make the playoffs. I think there's at least a chance that can happen, and if it does happen, then you definitely get a good return on that. And also you get plus money with the over and under um, going over 8 wins. I think they can get to 9. Um, and like I said, that's still probably not going to be good enough to make the playoffs, but I do see them they can win, get to 9 and hit that over. As far as the chances to win the division, like I said, there's just no chance there. Don't see anybody else competing. But you're going to see a lot of plus numbers with the Broncos just because of their. I think Vegas is down on them just because they had such a point a year, and therefore you'll see a lot of plus numbers. And I think there's some good value if you want to bet this team because Sean Payton can turn this whole thing around. Because he did that with the Saints. First year, he kind of turned their whole team around. And the first year he got there, he's capable of doing that. And I think he's capable here with the Broncos of doing that same thing. So I think those plus numbers are good value, and you can make maybe not put all your money on that, but I think you can put a bet here and there on the Broncos to win some of those bets for you.
Yeah. And just to add on to what I was saying, I was able to find the market that I mentioned. And for the Denver Broncos to finish second in the division, where I'm looking, you're getting a plus 270 in return. So, like I said, you're getting a far better number for them to battle it out for second place with the Chargers or potentially maybe even a surprise Raiders team. But I definitely think there's more value in playing that number versus potentially trying to maybe sprinkle a small amount on possibility to win the division or something along those lines, maybe make the playoffs. But I definitely think there is solid value behind that second place finish in the AFC West.
All right. We will hit our last team in the division with the worst odds to win it, and that is Las Vegas Raiders, the local team here. That is where I live. But they are plus 1,200 to win the division. Their over-under is set at 6.5. And their chances to make the playoffs, yes, is at plus 350. So this team, they got off to a pretty terrible start, going 2-7 during last season. Finished it off with 6-11. Derek Carr didn't really have a good season, so they shipped him off, and now he's in New Orleans. And now they signed Jimmy Garoppolo to take his place. He's had some injury problems of keeping himself healthy, and even going into this offseason. There were some questions of his availability going into the season. They let go Darren Waller. He's off with the Giants now. They signed Austin trying to replace him. And then they drafted Tyree Wilson in the first round, deep pass rusher. And the Raiders have the second hardest schedule in the league. So with that said, what do you think their chances of hitting that over and making the playoffs are?
This is one team where I would, I mentioned last week, a low number like what we see with the Raiders. It's hard to try and take an under. But with what we've seen out of the Raiders these past few years, there is a high level of dysfunction, I think, one at the higher levels of the organization, but also I don't put much stock into their head coach, McDaniels.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I hate to say that he's a joke of a head coach, but really that's my feelings towards it when I see him as a head coach of an NFL team, just given his history. And if anybody wants a good laugh, feel free to, Google Josh McDaniels' history as a head coach. That's all I'm going to say. But yes, having the second toughest schedule in the NFL this season definitely works against you. We see basically a rebuild going on. The team can say what they want. That Jimmy Garoppolo is not an upgrade at quarterback. They clearly didn't like what they were getting out of Derek Carr and let him walk this past offseason. I think the signing of Jimmy Garoppolo is more waving the white flag that they're not going to be pushing it all in to be trying to win a Super Bowl here in the next few seasons. I think this is partially why we've seen things unfold the way we have with the Josh Jacobs situation, where from what I've seen, Jacobs wants to play in Vegas. He wants to be a Raider, and it's the team more or less playing hardball over the contract and the numbers. So I think, there's a lot of going one way and looking the other going on in with the Raiders. And I think this is going to trickle down to what we see on the field. And given what's happened with their roster recently, as you know, as I mentioned, players leaving the team and not adequately being replaced. I do think we'll see the Max Crosby contract over the next season or two start to be more of a hindrance on the salary cap. I don't know for sure. I'd have to look into it, but that was possibly something that weighed on the Josh Jacobs situation, which, you know, these teams have the numbers in front of them. They know who's running out when, who's getting what money, what year. And so I think it's just further signs to the dysfunction of what's going on with the Raiders. And all this said, it makes me want to lean towards an under on like the total wins for the season. It was just a year or two ago that we saw the Detroit Lions turning things around, and people were still iffy. And even though maybe they hadn't gone out and silenced all the doubters, they're doing the right things that make you want to believe in them. Well, we're seeing the exact opposite going on in Las Vegas. So with a number like 5.5, even potentially 4.5, I'll smash the under on that.
Yeah, 6.5 is right what I got, and that is pretty. It's a tough task for them. Seeing what the roster looks like, it doesn't have too much talent, especially with an atrocious defense that they have. They can't stop anybody. All the guys, Crosby over there, and the rest of it is just crap. As far as Jimmy Garoppolo, he can win games. He doesn't look great doing it, but it's possible that maybe, like you said, maybe you get a 5.5, and maybe they can hit 6. If you can get that number, if you can get a 5.5, because he is known to win games. So it's possible to hit
he
that.
He was known to win
number,
games when he had talent around him. I think there's no better example of a game manager than Jimmy Garoppolo.
But like I said, I think that depends on whether Josh Jacobs there. He has Devontae Adams, so he got some talent there. And I like I said, if you get that 5.5 number, I think they can sneak 6 in there. They can sneak to 6, and maybe you can head it over there. But at 6.5, where I see it, where I had it on the side I was on, yeah, I just got to go under on that one. And as far as yes or no to make playoffs, that's a big no. It may be
big time.
And so I just wouldn't make a bet on that because I just don't think there's any value in making the bet. And then there's chances of winning the division are pretty much zero. Considering just the conference division, the Chiefs, it's just I don't see any possibility there of winning that division. Like you said, they looks like a rebuild, but can they sneak in? It just depends what number, and can they get to 6? Maybe so. It's possible. I think it's possible, but I think that's right where their win total is at. So if you want to hit that, like you said, get a good number, make the bet.
An interesting market I would potentially look at. We're talking about potentially fading the Raiders even on this low win total. Sort of just fitting with the theme of what I've been thinking this evening. Possibly at some point in the season, you might see markets come available for a team to finish with the worst record in the NFL, and the Raiders might potentially be a team to target in that market. A lot of this sometimes is being able to find those plus numbers, and with a potential futures market like that, I think you'd definitely be able to find a plus number on the Raiders. I wouldn't necessarily call them the favorites unless the season opens up and they just come out on some horrible losing streak. I'd imagine this would be the type of market again you'd be able to find a plus number on the Raiders, and even if it's later in the season, maybe a slight minus number, you might still feel comfortable playing that.
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely a good candidate for. Like one of the worst, considering they're in the better conference, because everybody thinks it's going to be the Cardinals, which the Cardinals could maybe not because they play in the worst conference. So maybe they can get a couple wins that the Raiders can't, just due to, like I said, the Raiders have a second hardest schedule in the league. So just by the fact of who they play, they could end up in that position. So I definitely agree with you on that bet. But what is your strongest bet in the division? What do you think is just the best bet to make here? You're gonna put all your money on. Um, what would that be for any of these teams? You want to keep on
It's a
thinking
good.
about that, and I'll tell you mine.
Yeah, you go ahead. I'm gonna think on this for just one
Okay, you
minute.
think about it. I think over the Chiefs 11.5. I think that's just I think that's completely. I think that's an easy bet to make. Um, hitting 12 games for Patrick Mahomes is just like you do that in his sleep. So putting my big stack of money on that one to for the Chiefs to hit the over on that one.
Yeah, I definitely got to tell you on that because there's a couple things I like that are closer to a plus number, but when we're talking about what might be most likely or what I feel might have the best chance. As we mentioned, short of Mahomes missing a large portion of this season, there's a strong likelihood that this team can go out there and put up 12 wins. I'd hate to say easily because winning games in the NFL isn't easy, but damn it if the Chiefs
Yeah.
don't go out there year after year and make it look easy. And that's just a dangerous team to try and fade. Now, I will be interested when we get into the season. This was a team last year that a lot of people were very big on them, and that led to a lot of double digit spreads that made it possible for trends where you could fade them on the spread, even though this team was still
Yes.
going out and racking up
They
W's throughout the season.
absolutely. They do get overvalued because they're so good in certain situations against certain teams. They definitely get overvalued. They have big spreads. So you definitely can take advantage of those type of the spreads during the season, and even futures bets when their value is way high. Maybe you know bet against them. In those type of situations, you definitely can see going against them. But as far as futures now going into the season, I think this one's clear. Anything else? Any bets? Anything you want to
Um,
help the people?
no, I think we got it pretty much covered with the AFC West this week. I definitely think there are going to be a few interesting divisions out there as far as who potentially walks away. I definitely think the NFC North will be interesting to watch this season as we see someone try and establish themselves as, a favorite in the division. We got a couple, the NFC South being another one that's probably going to be interesting as the season plays out because even where we don't possibly have as talented of teams in the NFC South, when you have that level of parity, it definitely makes for an interesting race, even if the teams are not out there, potentially putting up double digit win seasons. And that definitely makes things exciting getting into that late stretch of the season. So I'll definitely, you know, be excited to get into some of these other divisions that we got coming for the people.
Absolutely. When we get into those divisions coming up here soon, and then so you guys have to tune in for those. But for now, you can tell the people where they can find you.
Yes, y'all can reach me at dweatherly90 on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. That's where you can reach me there. Also, Backyard Action Media on here. As we get closer to the season, I'm possibly going to be doing some things on Sundays, trying to work out a good time. So, not sure if it may be more focused on potential live markets that may exist or persist throughout the season. Um, but I'll definitely I'm definitely looking at having something to bring the people possibly on Sundays throughout the NFL season and maybe even beyond.
All right. You can find me at NFL Caleb 22 on Instagram and Twitter or X or whatever you want to call that. Um, And then you can find me on this channel on Fridays, talking Cowboys and Giants. This Friday, coming up with my co-host Ferris Mutana, we go live at 3 o'clock. So tune in for that every week, and we'll be here again next week and all the weeks, all the way through the Super Bowl. Keep what we do, making you guys money. So that's what we're gonna do, and so you have to tune in for that. But for now, like I always say, let's get ready to make some money.